Welcome back, guys. In today's video, we're taking a deep dive into the full story summary, breaking down all the key moments, the drama, the emotions, and the major turning points from start to finish. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so and turn on your notifications. And tell me in the comments which moment stood out the most for you, alright? Without wasting any more time, let's jump straight into the full story. January the 1st, 2026. Amid Leita's threats, Ashalata's tricks, and Sergio's anger, Noyontara investigates Shaoli's death. She spots the mysterious Pari of the Mahal wandering outside at night. January the 2nd, 2026. After Noyontara interferes with a ceremonial ritual, she is berated. Later, when she incurs an injury whilst helping Sergio, the latter tenderly cares for her wounds. January the 3rd, 2026. As Noyontara puts herself in harm's way to protect Sergio, Leita is touched by her actions. Meanwhile, Shaoli apprises Noyontara that the latter only has 6 days to prove her innocence. January the 4th, 2026. Inches ordered to learn the truth behind Shaoli's death, Noyontara asks for Pulomi's help. Meanwhile, Leita surveys her actions closely as chaos ensues in Hasiram's kitchen. January the 5th, 2026. Noyontara asks Pulomi to uncover the truth behind Shaoli's death. Later, Pulomi tells Sergio that Noyontara has left the house. January the 6th, 2026. Pulomi tells Noyontara that Leita knows about their whereabouts. Later, Leita and Pandit secretly make plans to get rid of Noyontara. January the 7th, 2026. Noyontara discovers past communication between Shaoli and Sergio prior to her passing. However, Leita facilitates an accident which renders Shaoli's mother incapable of enlightening Noyontara further. January the 8th, 2026. After confessing to murdering Shaoli, Leita dares Noyontara to implicate her. Later, whilst harboring malicious intentions, Leita arranges Noyontara and Sergio's wedding night. January the 8th, 2026. Sergio demands of Noyontara to produce Shaoli's photograph. Meanwhile, Leita blackmails Noyontara after the latter is implored by restless spirits for help. January the 9th, 2026. Leita and Gurudev confess to their responsibility in Lalita's murder, who had found a clue to the treasure and learnt that it can only be claimed by Noyontara. January the 10th, 2026. Noyontara decides to expose Leita and Gurudev after uncovering their malevolent motives. Meanwhile, Shaoli's hidden photograph drives Sergio into fury. January the 11th, 2026. Whilst Sergio concocts a scheme to leave the country and escape from Noyontara, he is warned by Leita. Meanwhile, Shaoli gets closer to realizing her goals. January the 12th, 2026. Leita is questioned by Noyontara, who tries to expose her during the ceremonial ritual. Later, after bringing Sergio's Nani forward, Noyontara asks her about Lalita having a twin. January the 12th, 2026. After Noyontara is apprised by Nani that Lalita had a twin sister, she tries to expose Leita's mole. However, she fails in her endeavor and later crosses paths with Sergio. January the 13th, 2026. Noyontara insists on staying with Sergio on learning Leita's plan of causing him harm. However, Sergio shares his frustrations with Shaoli's lingering memories which he wants to escape. January the 14th, 2026. Whilst reminiscing about Shaoli, Sergio helps Noyontara experience the city of Kolkata. Afterwards, Noyontara leaves him startled with a confession of her affection. January the 15th, 2026. Noyontara prevents Sergio from drinking poisoned coffee by rushing into his cabin. Later, to convince him that it is indeed poisoned, she drinks the coffee. January the 16th, 2026. After witnessing Noyontara struggle for her life, Sergio is led into a panic. Consequently, he remains with her, offering prayers for her swift recovery. January 17, 2026. Noyontara's soul rises to watch Sergio's desperation after she becomes comatose. Afterwards, she apprises Shaoli that Sergio is not accountable for her situation. January 18, 2026. Noyontara is required alive by Leita to claim the treasure, but Shaoli pilfers the antidote. Leita takes an oath to eliminate Noyontara after the treasure has been acquired. January 19, 2026. Converted from his earlier path of atheism, Sergio walks barefoot and prays for Noyontara's swift recovery at the temple. January 20, 2026. Noyontara is revived by the intensity of Sergio's rising affections for her. Afterwards, in light of his surging sentiments, he announces that Noyontara will stay in his room. January 21, 2026. Noyontara is brought by Sergio to his room and their affections ignite a complex chemistry. Meanwhile, Leita is left to witness Sergio's trust in her wither away. January 22, 2026. Noyontara is brought by Sergio to his home where his family dotes upon her. However, when meals are served, she tastes servings intended for Sergio to ensure they are not poisoned. January 23, 2026. Inches a desperate attempt to stop Noyontara from observing a fast. Sergio intervenes. Later, Sergio manages to feed Noyontara when she falls asleep. January 24, 2026. Shaoli fails to attack Noyontara after she falls on Sergio, who later comforts her. Meanwhile, Leita plans on killing Sergio after making Shashada sick. January 25, 2026. When Noyontara receives a phone as a gift from Sergio, she teases him for his affection. Later, she insists on contacting the authorities regarding the poisoning incident. January 26, 2026. Nani is assured by Noyontara that she will expose Leita's malevolent machinations. Later, she apprises the authorities that spirits from beyond have warned her of danger awaiting Sergio. January 27, 2026. Noyontara is unable to offer evidence of her ability to commune with the departed. Afterwards, she is accused of fraud by Leita, but Sergio stands in her favor. January 28, 2026. Noyontara comes to learn from Ashalata that Leita disappears regularly at night. Later, Noyontara follows Leita and finds her in a concealed room, preparing a poison. January 29, 2026. Leita disappears before Noyontara can expose her to Sergio for concocting poisons. Afterwards, Noyontara vows to conduct the ritual of Manasa Puja on Nag Panchami. January 30, 2026. During the Manasa Puja conducted by Noyontara, Leita sets a snake loose in Sergio's room. Afterwards, Noyontara is alerted and she rushes to save Sergio. January 31, 2026. When Noyontara rescues Sergio without interrupting her ritual, Leita feels defeated. Consequently, Leita tries to frame Noyontara for a snake attack, to undermine her reputation. If you want, I can also white heavy checkmark remove dates, white heavy checkmark rewrite into T-circuit format, white heavy checkmark add actors names. Just tell me.